Thank you, Preeti and Nancy. Good morning, everyone. Let's now have a look at the top lines. Finance Ministry has said that demonetization will lead to a wider tax base and lower interest rates, thus paving the way for sustainable, faster economic growth. In a written response to Parliamentary Accounts Committee, Finance Ministry said the idle and hidden cash has come into the formal system, which will be utilized for productive purposes. Asia's oldest stock exchange, BSE, goes for a listing with an initial public offer starting from today with an offer size of nearly 1,250 crore rupees. BSE Sensex has already allocated 46,28,158 equity shares to anchor investors at an offer price of 806 rupees per equity share, worth to 373 crore rupees. Niti Aayog CEO Amitabh Kant has said that by the year 2020, debit cards, credit cards and ATM cards will be redundant in the country. Demonetization was also necessary to enable the push towards a digital economy in a much quicker way. Indian Railways to set up $5 billion development fund. The fund will be anchored by the World Bank and will serve as an institutional mechanism for the Indian Railways to arrange funds from the market for its investments. This fund will be managed independently by a non-government entity. Those were the top lines. Now moving across to the global markets, to begin with the United States, the equities there closed higher in their in a choppy trade in their previous trading session on Friday after Donald Trump took a protectionist tone in his first speech as president. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained about 95 points after raising almost 112 points at session highs. The S&P 500 gained 0.3% with telecommunications and materials actually leading the advancers. The Nasdaq Composite advanced 0.28%. In fact, the three major indexes had traded more than 0.5% higher ahead of President Donald Trump's speech. Now going to the European markets. In fact, the markets ended their trading on Friday before President Donald Trump's inauguration. So markets ended in a cautious mode awaiting his first speech. The European markets closed flat on Friday. Investors seem to be taking a guarded approach as they wait for clarity on what the new US administration will do. In fact, the retail stocks ended down following news that British retailers registered their biggest drop in more than 4 years last month. FTSE 100 was down by a marginal 10 points. While Germany's DAX and France's CAC 40 ended on a flat positive note, but on a positive territory. Moving on to the Indian markets, in fact, the S&P, BSE, Sensex and also National Stock Exchange Nifty too awaited President Trump's inaugural speech and traded on a cautious mode on Friday. In fact, the Indian benchmark indices fell 1% on Friday. The BSE Sensex closed 274 points lower at 27,034, and National Stock Exchange NSE Nifty lost 86 points to close around 8,349. Even the broader markets showed a similar trend as the mid-cap and small-cap indices lost 1.54% and 1.27% respectively. And now coming to the Asian markets, today in fact they were on the defensive mode. There are worries in certain quarters about President Trump's protectionist policies. They outweighed the optimism that he will follow through on promises of tax cuts and other stimulus. In fact, the Japanese Nikkei is dropped by over 1%, and Kospi, Hang Seng and Shanghai Composite showing some sort of positive trends. However, SGX Nifty is hovering between positive and negative territories. So there is some sort of a subdued trend in the Asian markets. Now, Indian markets, will have to see how Indian markets will take these cues from their global peers, because it is enough President Donald Trump's economic policies that apparently impacting the global markets, and then we'll have to see how Indian markets will be taking these cues. Those are the updates in the finance world. Once again, back to Preeti and Nancy.